it, like listen to my mix away from the show.
Daniel Dekay, welcome to 69 Face of Rock. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, man. Thank you.
Excellent. Daniel, tell me about your musical background. How did you get started?
I'm fortunate enough to have a dad who's pretty young. So, hey, Scotty, we're doing another one. Yeah, shut the hell up.
Get out of here.
Yeah, I was lucky to have a dad who was pretty young, so it didn't really feel like when he was showing me music, it didn't really feel like you're like listening to your parents' music. It felt like pretty cool and relevant to the things I was interested in. He always preferred, he told me, he's like, I'd rather listen to Iron Maiden than The Who. And that was kind of like something that stuck with me about him, is that he wasn't into like hippie rock and roll. Yeah, he loved Zeppelin, but who doesn't love Zeppelin? But he wasn't into the hippie shit as much as he was in to the harder shit and the new wave of British heavy metal. So that's, he drove an IROC and listened to heavy metal. It's, it would be very, that would be very important for my life down the road, both those things. He had wicked record collection. So yeah, I was lucky that he didn't play an instrument or anything, but he had great musical taste, and the radio was always on, and records were always playing, and CDs and cassettes and everything, and horror movies and all the good shit. I was really lucky. I had that influence at home.
Couldn't ask for a better background.
Yeah, it's true, and it's like at home. I didn't really have to like go far to find it. It was right in front of me. It was awesome.
What have you done musically prior to joining Exciter?
I was in a rock and roll band called Diamonds for pretty much my entirety of my 20s. Put out a Juno-nominated record with them and toured around the world fucking 666 times in a van that was falling apart. But yeah, I did that with them. Prior to that, I was playing in more thrash and more heavy metal bands, notably one called Aggressor, which is how I met Dan originally in our mutual hometown of Ottawa. But yeah, I was always into like being in a thrash band, being younger, and playing in heavy metal bands. And then when I got the opportunity to join Diamonds, I was like, all right, I guess I'm in a rock and roll band now. But admittedly, I did bring a lot of metallic edge to that band, and it shows on the records I did. It's a lot more metal than they started out like Aerosmith, and we kind of ended sounding more like 90s Metallica, which is cool.
What do you think attracted Exciter to your playing?
I don't know if anything about my playing attracted them to me. I think that they liked the fact that they knew me, and they knew where I was from, and it was like it was family. Like I don't think when I reached out to them that it was like, oh yeah, let's get DK in the band because we love the way he can play the songs. I think it was, let's get DK in the band because he's family and we know we can trust him, and he's I think that I joined Exciter at a point in their career where they don't, like, it doesn't really matter how I play. Anyone, they're not going to choose a shitty guitar player. Any guitar player could come in and learn the parts. They could have hired 100 different people from around the world who would be, dying to be in that band. I think that what I brought to the table was something more important, which is that I was already family and I could be trusted, and I had a relationship with those guys. With anyone who's in a band will tell you that that's perhaps the most important part about choosing a new member. Is not it's not about whether or not they can play the parts. You can find a million people who can play the parts. Cool. It's about, do you get along with them? Can you trust them? Can they do it on the road? So I think that I brought that kind of side to the table more than, there was no audition video is what I'm trying to say. It was a phone call. It was like a heart-to-heart.
So that's how they kind of got in touch with you? Come over and play?
They said, we need Alan posted on Facebook, John's retiring, we need a guy. Me and Dan don't want to stop. And I messaged Al, and then a couple hours later I was on the phone with Dan. And it was that organic.
What was the first rehearsal like?
The first rehearsal, my audition was our first rehearsal. We were, I'd learned, I don't know, maybe like 14 songs, and I think we ended up doing 12 of those 14 songs on the first show, and I came in, and it was just like, they had a set list written, and I just came in, and we did it maybe twice, and it was like, sorry, I just smoked a huge fucking blunt outside. It's still in my chest. Yeah, it's fucking Gagler. Yeah, it was like we played through those songs twice, and then it was like, all right, cool. So the flights, we'll do this again next weekend. Then the flight's a week after that. We're going to Houston for our first show. It was like just like that. We did like 2 or 3 rehearsals, and it was like, cool, let's fucking couple Saturday, Sunday afternoon rehearsals with a case of beer and a couple joints, and I was on my way to my first show.
How familiar were you with their music before you joined?
I was insanely familiar with the first 2 records, like knew them through like the front and back of my hand. Admittedly, Long Live the Loud and Unveiling the Wicked, I'd listened to. Long Live the Loud, I'd listened to way more than Unveiling. Admittedly, Unveiling the Wicked was completely off my my radar. For me, it was like, oh, that's the Not John Ricci record. It was like, that's Brian McPhee. Obviously, that was my young high school opinion on it. Now looking back at it, I'm like, fuck yeah, that's the Brian McPhee record. It's like, oh, it's more of it's Exciter with Van Halen leads is what I love about it. It's like, it's super melodic, and the way he uses the trem is completely different than John. It's a different band. I love it. It's awesome. But yeah, at first I was like, oh, that's not true, Exciter. Only the first 3 albums are real was kind of my attitude in the beginning. But now I'm pitching them Unveiling songs constantly. I want to break down the walls in the set. I love that shit.
You'd be surprised how many people actually love those songs.
Yeah, dude, there are people who like love songs off albums that I wouldn't believe, like, because I talked to them. I know you already talked to Dan, and I overheard him say that one of his biggest regrets was the Black Album. It's just he's talking about OTT, because yeah, that's the thing, is like they call it the Black Album. To me, that was always OTT, and I know some people call it the self-title. Like, I don't know, man, but that to me was always OTT. And like, dude, people ask for songs off that record all the time, like diehards, not like the casual fan. Like when we meet the diehards, like that's what they want to hear. They want to hear shit like we never do. So that's that's pretty interesting. That's interesting to me.
How open are you to those requests?
I'm like kind of open. I'm open, but I'm also realistic. Like, I also don't want to piss off 80% of the room. You know, like and trust me, I go through this with the bands I love. Like, I'm not a normal music fan. I'm like an obsessive music fan. So when I'm like either in or out. I'm kind of like that my whole life. I'm either 100% in and like diving in head first, or I like want nothing to do with it. So yeah, obviously I want to go see shows where bands play nothing but deep cuts, but I'm also realistic. I know why they can't do that. I think that one of the only bands that's ballsy enough to go out and not close with the same 4 hits every night is Iron Maiden. I really love that they have always, since I've been a kid. I remember going to shows where they were doing like, you know, the theme tours they'd always do.
Yeah.
And I remember it was like, you know, one of these eras. It wasn't somewhere back in time, but it was in that era. Forget which one it was. Saw them so many times as a stoned teenager. And I remember I went with buddies, and they were like, "No Trooper?" And I'm like, "Yeah, No Trooper." It's a different era. It's not the show we're seeing. Like, we're seeing a show, and I've always admired that about them. But yeah, a lot of bands don't do that. Dude, Kiss is my favorite band, and they've been playing the same set list for 15 years because they like kind of have to, you know? People would be super pissed if they left the show and we didn't play the songs off Maniac and we didn't play the songs off Violence that they want to hear.
Gene would say, "We're just doing it for the fans."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. There you go. Precisely.
At what point did you realize it was happening for good? You being an Exciter.
I would say after the first year. I mean, like I think that, you know, never take anything for granted. That's actually a very interesting question. Yeah, I wasn't sure at first. At first, I had a lot of self-doubt about it. I know I've only told Dan this once ever, like after a late night of drinking, probably in my hotel room when it's just him and I left. I almost called him and Al like right before the first show and told them I couldn't do it. I was really nervous. I had a lot of self-doubt about my playing style, and I thought that I was sitting there learning the songs, and I was like, oh, I can't, like I'm not like, and I talked to only like 2 really close friends about it, and I'm happy I pulled through because I was really uncomfortable. I felt like I rushed into this. I'm not the right guy for the job. I can't pull this off, and I was going through a dark phase musically. A band that I'd put my, you know, heart and soul into for my whole young life had just fallen apart, you know, less than 2 years prior. I came home from a Euro tour with them and just knew that those were some of the last shows I was ever going to play with them, and that crushed me. And I kind of like I didn't swear it off. I didn't have a fuck music moment, but like I definitely had that was my shot and it's over moment. I thought it was done. You know, I was almost going to be 30, and I was just like, well, I've wasted the last 10 years of my life and fuck this. And so I was nervous. I was really nervous. But after the first year of, we did a huge one-off with Power Trip, rest in peace Riley, one of my favorite bands ever, and Razor, one of my favorite bands ever, is Hell's Heroes. And we were the 3 headliners, and like there were 15 incredible support bands. And we did that, and then we immediately went to Scandinavia. We did a huge Vancouver show that was sold out with Sacrifice, and then we did this crazy Toronto thing with Iron Reagan and Sacred Reich, like a one-off, and it was just like all these amazing things happened, and then it was like a full 12 months of that, and I think after that I was like, all right, like this feels real now. Like I feel like I'm part of this now.
Mm-hmm.
Like there was a while there where I was really concerned that didn't feel like I was part of it, and I wasn't meshing, but I was getting in my own head. Sometimes we're our own worst enemy. And I'm really critical of myself, and I really work myself to the bone. And sometimes, I just get in my own head. So I'm really happy I stuck it out. Because, that would have sucked.
I watched you very closely 2 weeks ago when you played in Madison.
Thanks, man.
And as an old Exciter fan, you are a natural fit.
Thank you.
How do you approach these songs?
In my own way completely. I'm not a John clone. I'm not going to try and say
I noticed that too. That's why I'm asking that question.
Yeah, I'm not at all. I have my... I asked for Dan's blessing, and Al as well. I hit them up. I'm like, so what are we doing here? Like at that first rehearsal, I came in and I did like my version of like a John Ricci intro to start a show, and I just remember looking at them. And they were both like looking at each other like the hugest smiles in their eyes like this. I'm like, all right, cool, they like that. Okay, they're cool with that. Yeah, I've got my own ideas about tone. Do I think that fucking Heavy Metal Maniac sounds amazing? Of course it does. You could never recreate that though. I don't play 800s or Marshalls. I have my own ideas of what I like my tone to sound like, and it's all about attack too. Like if I just did John Ricci's tone and played with my attack, it wouldn't sound the same. It would just sound like me, shitty, out of place with someone else's scratchy tone. I think that you've got to make things your own, and you've got to play into your own strengths. And for me, that's always been with a more like Dave Mustaine, the attack and aggression of a Dave Mustaine rhythm tone, but with like Eddie Van Halen's sense of like EQ and use of phase and stuff like that. I think just like tonally, I've just kind of approached it as myself, like the kind of tone that I like. I was using, in rock and roll bands, I was always using 800s. In this band, I've used a 6505 and a 5150 mainly. I used a Wizard Head recently. It's just way out of my price point, but it sounds great. I would consider using a Quad Cortex or a digital modeler in this band too. I think that I could find a good tone on any of that. And so that's, sound wise. Pointy guitars, I've always played pointy guitars. That was a natural fit in Exciter. But like the leads and stuff, like I dress them as my own. I'll follow his general structures and like some of his phrasing, but I knew myself as an Exciter fan from going to see the reunion shows and seeing the band with John and various other singers in my teen years. I knew that like you could I could do whatever I wanted with the solos in a sense, as long as I paid respect where it was due, because that's what John was doing. Like if I saw Exciter play 10 times, I heard the stand up and fight solo 10 different ways when John was playing guitar. So I kind of used that almost as like paying tribute to him in a way. I'm like, well, I'm going to fucking freestyle the solos a bit. And if I want to, Ace Frehley them up a little bit, that's what I'm going to do. That's, if I'm going to dime them up a bit, that's what I'm going to do. Those are my guys. I always go back to like, what would Ace do? It's just the way you can't change my DNA. It's just in me. So, I want to pay respect. I want everyone to be stoked on the songs, and I want them to be played tight, and I want them to be fucking heavy. But at the same time, I'm not going to try and pretend I'm someone I'm not. I do want to bring my own flavor. Dude, like John had fucking 5 people in Exciter at one point. If he's allowed to have 5 people in Exciter, I can surely bring my own spice to the solos, It's a 3-piece band. Come on, dude.
That's right.
Yeah.
What are your favorites to play?
God. I keep saying it, Break Down the Walls. I'd like be sick if that came back soon. love doing violence, obviously. Victims. I like doing Victims of Sacrifice. That's bad. We did Saxons once. That was really fun to play. We've only done it once in Germany. But yeah, I like playing all of them. They're all fun because I got to join a band where I knew all the songs already. It's like I was joining a band where like I sing more backups than any guitar player in the band has before me. I do all the gangs, but I've also started, doing some lines with Dan because
Notice that too.
Because I love the songs, because I love the songs. And I know the words, and I'm a bad shower singer, so sometimes he lets me bad shower sing with him on stage.
Are you considering writing any new material for the band?
Yeah, of course. There's always a desire to create and do new stuff. I think that it was really important to us to play a shitload of shows together to give everyone, like in my opinion, this band, I know there's a lot of legacy that's talked about touring Venom in Brazil and Motorhead in North America and Accept shows and all this stuff, but the more I learned what was actually going on with Exciter straight from their mouths, I realized that there were actually a lot less shows played than the internet might make it seem. Like these were all very short tours and they were very regional, and there's cities in America the band had never played, like their entire history. So for me it was really important to give everyone the opportunity to go, because I'm like a live person. I go to, if I can go to 300 shows a year, I'll do it, like I love going to live concerts. So for me, I got such a rush from playing those first year of shows with them, kind of sporadic shows here and overseas, that I was like, dude, we should like ramp up. We should do like full European tours, full South American tours, we should do world touring on a non-limited scale. And it's pretty much taken until now, this year, 2023, for us to accomplish that. This is our longest, this is an average tour length for a band that does this all the time. This is the longest tour we've ever done, man. We're doing 22 shows in like 24 days or 25 days or something. It's like this band never does that. So to me, it's taken us a couple years to get here, but we're finally doing it. All these people come to these shows are like, either I've never seen the band or I haven't seen the band since 1986. And to me, that's the ultimate sign that like we needed to do this. Give everyone the chance before we put out a record full of songs they've never heard and then go back on tour and play all those songs and annoy the fuck out of them. You know what I mean? Like I thought it was important to do get the legacy touring out of the way first. And, we lost a couple of years there in North America for lockdowns. We played a lot of shows in pandemic era in South America, and Europe it was even easier, but we lost a couple of years there in North America, so we're making up for in a big way on this one for sure.
Are there any pressures in being in a band like Exciter?
Yeah, I mean, like you just asked me about my approach in playing someone else's songs. This is a constant theme. It's like when you're doing something and constantly being compared to someone else. And for a lot of these people, they're not just comparing you to someone else, they're comparing you to their fucking favorite guitar player of all time from their favorite band ever. It's I can't even imagine the stress of, like I look at a guy like Charlie Benante. It's one of the hardest jobs in the world, playing Vinnie Paul every night in front of fucking 70,000, Pantera fans on that. Dude, touring with Metallica, it's like 70,000 people there a night. It's all their favorite band, with a legendary drummer that everyone knows his name, and all of a sudden you got to do that. That's how I feel in this band sometimes. Like people who like Exciter, anyone at the show tonight who's at the show tonight knows that I'm not the original guitar player. You know what I mean? Like that to me is an immense amount of pressure.
But they also know you kick ass on stage.
I appreciate that. But at least like Richie Faulkner kind of looked like he played in Judas Priest like the whole time. Like if someone didn't know, they might think that was KK Downing. I don't have that benefit. I should straighten my hair and dye it black, and everyone will shut the fuck up and leave me alone, right? Wear more gauntlets.
I know.
Fuck yeah.
Finally, what lessons have you learned from playing with Dan and Alan?
Oh my God, I had to. I relearned everything. It's been such an eye-opening experience. A lot of things that I knew about, that I thought I knew about this, I got a completely new perspective on. And I learned how to work with people in a different capacity. I've never been in a band before where it wasn't like people in my age group that I started a band with and like kind of, you know, like that was the relationship. It was like we all went to the same high school and saw the same bands growing up together. Like I was always in like bands with kind of like that sort of situation. I've never played in a band where I'm literally sitting on a, you know, we got a 6-hour drive to kill, and it's like a train. I've never been in a band before where you have a 6-hour drive to kill and you can sit beside your two bandmates and hear them tell you stories about Lemmy and Cliff Burton. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. First-hand accounts. I'm like, oh shit, you know, like, okay. Like in my other bands, we'd talk about Lemmy and be like, yeah, man, I met Lemmy once at the Rainbow in like 2011. You know, like it's a much fucking different experience than these guys had. So I've learned a lot about life, and I've learned a lot about music and spirituality and fucking, you know, passion. I've learned a lot about life from these guys. Not many of my other bandmates. Fuck it, I'll go out and say, 0 of my other bandmates in life have taught me good life lessons like these guys have. Yeah, I've learned so much about music and life from these guys, and that to me is what's unique about it.
Thank you.
My pleasure, dude.